Well, it's time for the finishing touch, the hems. So step number 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 are all catered to individual styles. So the first one is step 10, which is for the shorts. So we're going to be making the narrow 5/8 inch hem on the bottom of my little shorts here. And if you have did a short, you're going to be doing this hem. If you did a pant, you're going to do the same hem as what we worked on as the sample in P15A, a machine stitched hem. We did both the narrow 5/8 and we did the pant, full pant, for 1.5 inches. Then that one is step 11. And then step 12, 13, and 14 all deal with the elastic casing at the bottom. And if you're doing that, you will make the casing just like we did at the top of the pant. However, it won't have buttonholes in it. And you will do that insertion like we did on the little casing that we made in P14A, the fold down casing, and how we put elastic in that. Okay, so let's look at this one first. No matter what hem you're putting in it, no matter if you made it a short or a pant, the first thing that you have to do before you begin doing any operations on the hem itself is to make sure that they're the even length. Now, I'm assuming that my subject or my client has even length on their legs and or how they stand. If your client and you fit them or yourself maybe has one hip higher than the other and doesn't really know it, you can have two different pant lengths needed. So you'd want to double check if this was a very tailored pant, you probably would not want to set the hem until they were in the shoes that they were going to be wearing with it, and you had them in front of you with the pant on, ready to do the finishing. Now, our pant finishing is rather simple, but I don't want to mislead anyone because finishing can actually be some of the most laborious parts of any garment. Just like that cutting out and prepping, the actual finishing on many garments takes more time than you think. It can mean anything from sewing on buttons, snaps, hooks, trim. It can be different kinds of hemming. It can be a needed to open up bound buttonholes. It can be setting final pockets, opening final pockets. There's a lot of things that can happen in the finish work. Ours is just the hem because we have everything else taken care of. So let's measure my inseams first. That would be our first indication that we have a good to go here. So I'm going to open it up and I'm just going to lay right at that finished seam right there, the crotch seam, and measure out along my stitched flat fell seam, so it's pretty straight, and that's coming in at 4 7/8. Let's go measure it over here. And that one is at 4 7/8 also. Now, don't freak out if one of yours is longer or shorter than the other, if they're not identical. It can happen in that crotch stitching if you weren't real careful and had them lined up, edges, raw edges, correct corners, lined up correct stitching lines. You could end up with one of these a little bit longer or shorter than the other. In the pant, in the full leg pant, it can happen a lot easier, and you can have a little default happen with it without you really realizing it until you go and measure. If it's off by, more than a quarter of an inch or even an eighth of an inch, it really shouldn't be much more over that. If it gets over that quarter inch difference, you're going to have to look at how you're going to do the hem, because you can't just cut some off, remember, because we have that angle, and when you fold it up in there, it isn't going to fit quite right. The little pant here is like a short pant is like a Bermuda almost. It's very straight up here, straight down. So there was no angle on and off. It's just a fold under process. Okay, I'm going to turn it wrong side out to start this. And if you remember on our little sample, we start with a quarter of an inch. That happens to be 2/8. So if we take 2/8 away from our 5/8, it gives us 3/8. And remember, I had you all draw in, and I had a line problem on mine, so I had to get out another little piece I had. I have several of these, and I drew in a new 3/8. 1, 2, 3. So that when I get to that, I know I've got a clean straight line to do it. So first, we're going to do that quarter of an inch, or 2/8, all the way around both legs, and do both legs at the same time. And so I'm just going to work my way around. And when I am done with the quarter around everything, I'll be back and we'll start on the 3/8 to complete it. See you in a bit. Okay, I've got it all pressed up the quarter inch around. I feel really good about that. Now it's time to do the 3/8, because remember, this is 2/8. 2/8 and 3/8 will make our 5/8 inch hem allowance that was allowed on here. That was what was planned. Now, it doesn't mean on the short, though, that maybe you want it a little shorter than what they have, a little bit shorter of an inseam. You're free to do that. Since this is a straight place here, you could adjust this and take a shorter version of it and not affect the hem at the moment. So we're going to now start our 3/8 turn, and that's up here to this line. And as I do this one, I am going to trim any loose threads before I completely turn them in there, so all of that raveling thread is gone. And then I will probably put a pin in here, because then it is ready to go to the machine. And I'll meet you back in just a little bit. Okay, I'm back. I've got it all pinned up, ready to go to our machine to stitch it. But before I go, I would check again my inseam. And another way you can do that, I did measure this one, and it is at the same distance. But I can also hold this right on the seam, the crotch seam, nice and even, and then I can pull up this seam, that inseam, and pull them taut to each other and see that they are the same. We can tell that. Let's get a little closer for that one. So they are the same. I'm holding it taut right on that crotch seam from the inside out. And yep, they're even. The other thing that I want to make you aware of is when you're in the short, it's kind of more simpler to hem up, but you can still get caught. You still want to make sure that everything lines up, like folds over and over, and all your seams line up. And when you fold it up, they're all lined up in there, so that when you sew it, again, if it's off, if it's really truly off right now, it probably means you didn't press it correctly and you've got narrow and wide, narrow and wide. So you want to go back and make sure that that gets pressed correctly. Okay, I'm going to go sew it and then I'll be right back. Oh, well, we're sewing it, just a review of that. I'm going to sew it from the inside because I want to be somewhere at about, not quite that 3/8, but between 1/4 inch and 3/8. And I will sew it back here so that I have a nice even edge. Watching in the machine, this is going to be my guide. Wherever that fits, probably at about 1/4 inch is where it's going to ride at in the machine so that I can stitch there. You don't want to go off of this because then it is open. If anything, if you have to go a little bit deeper in it or something, if you happen to go, that is going to be still okay because it's folded on itself so much. But if you come along here and then you went up over this, that's going to be loose and open up. Okay, see you in a bit. And here we are back. They are pants! Yay! Little short pants. All done. My hem is in, stitched clear around. I gave it a final little press, especially on the hem where I was stitching. And that is the shorts. Congratulations.